So I recently went through a bunch of my projects that I've been working on this year, and I took a look at the top 15 plugins that I use the most. So here's the list of my top 15 most used plugins. What's up, my producer friends? I'm David with anothermonsterproductions.com. If you're new to the channel, I'm a music producer and I use FL Studio to produce. I do a lot of FL Studio tutorials on the channel, as well as some other production related content. And one thing I actually really love about FL Studio is the stock plugins in FL Studio. So I use a combination of third-party plugins and stock plugins whenever I'm producing. This video does contain some stock FL Studio plugins, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to save those for the end of the video. So I'm going to do all the third-party plugins first. That way, if you don't use FL Studio, you can still watch the first part of this video and hopefully get some good information out of it. I'll also be leaving some timestamps in the description of this video so you can skip around to different plugins if you want to. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. So plugin number 1 is Labs by Spitfire Audio. I've been producing a lot of lo-fi hip hop recently, and this soft piano is absolutely perfect for lo-fi. They also have a ton of other sounds to choose from, which you can download in the form of labs, and they have a ton of different labs that you can choose from. Labs is compatible with PC and Mac, so you should be able to download it and use it with any DAW that you want. Since this is a free plugin, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time demoing it, because ultimately you can do that yourself when you download this plugin. This plugin is an absolutely must-have. Alright, so the next plugin on the list is Serum by Xfer Records. I think at this point most people either own Serum or are at least familiar with this synth. It's an absolutely amazing, iconic synth, especially if you do any sort of EDM music. And in my opinion, this is the perfect synth to learn sound design on. So if you're into sound design, I do a lot of sound design tutorials on the channel. Most of my tutorials are in stock FL Studio synths. However, like I said, Serum is actually the best synth that you can get if you're learning sound design, because it gives you such good visual feedback in terms of what everything is doing while you're creating your sounds. So you can get Serum on xferrecords.com for $189. You can also go to Splice, and they actually have a rent to own option where you can pay $10 a month for 19 months. And then at the end of the 19 months, they'll provide you with a full out license for Serum, and then you'll own it. Now again, because this synth is so iconic and there are already a million different videos on YouTube showing you how to use this synth and what it sounds like, I'm not gonna spend any time demoing this synth, but if you are brand new to this synth for some reason and you wanna check it out, there are tons and tons of videos available on YouTube. Alright, so next on the list is Iota Mini by Angelic Vibes. This synth is absolutely amazing and it's free, and it's really geared more towards producers who make trap beats. So if you make any sort of trap beats or even lo-fi and just hip hop stuff in general, this plugin is, in my opinion, a must-have. And the free version comes with a decent amount of presets you can see here. It's not kind of an overwhelming amount of presets, but it's enough to really get you started, and all these presets sound amazing. Now, Iota Mini is available for Windows and Mac, so you should be able to use this with any DAW that you want. Now, this plugin is technically a rompler where you really only have access to the presets which are available to choose from. You can't make your own sounds from scratch, and you have just basic minimal controls over what you can do with the sounds. You have a cutoff knob, some reverb, and the attack and release within the envelope here. So if you are into sound design, there's not really a whole lot you can do with this synth. However, the presets are really good in my opinion, and you can ultimately do some post-processing to them and make them sound even better. So let's go ahead and take a listen to some of these presets here. Let's take a listen to some of these bells. guitars. So anyway, you get the idea. There's a lot of really good presets in here. The only thing to kind of be aware of is that when you do download this plugin, it's like, I think maybe 6 gigabytes or something. It's a really big file, so you're definitely going to want a computer with some extra space on it. So the next plugin I want to talk about is OTT, again by Xfer Records. This plugin is another free plugin that you can get for PC or Mac, should work with any DAW. This is another one of those iconic plugins that probably most of you have heard about. If you haven't heard about this plugin, it's definitely another must-have, and the key with this plugin is to keep it fairly subtle for most uses. There are occasional situations where you might want to go a little bit heavier with this plugin, but for the most part, I like to basically bring the depth knob down quite a bit, usually in between 10% to about 20%, sometimes a little bit higher than that, and then sometimes even below 10% depending on what I'm using it for. This is a multiband compressor with upwards and downwards compression, but in most cases I think this plugin is actually used more sort of like a saturator, where its characteristic is that it adds this nice high end to whatever you add it onto. So it can kind of help beef up the sound and then also just brighten up the sound quite a bit. Let's take a listen to what it sounds like on this Iota Mini synth. So you can really hear as I add more depth, it really starts to brighten that synth up and kind of add what sounds like saturation. All right, so next on the list is M-Autopitch. This is another free plugin by MeldaProduction, and you can actually get this plugin in a giant bundle of plugins, which is pretty cool. There's actually several plugins from that bundle that I use. This bundle of free plugins is available for Windows and Mac, so you should be able to use it in any DAW. And the main thing I use this plugin for is pretty much anytime I use a vocal sample, I'll experiment with changing the formant shift to kind of see what that sounds like in combination with various other effects as well. So for example, let me show you on this particular vocal sample, you can kind of see the chain of effects that I have. So I have the M-Autopitch with just a little bit of formant shift. I have an EQ, which is kind of doing like a radio effect. I have some pretty heavy reverb and then also some delay and some RC20 as well. So let's actually take a listen to what that sounds like here. So that's this sample here. And I can shift it more. Or we can shift it low. So let's kind of listen to what that sounds like. So anyway, you get the idea there. There are several other knobs here that can help change the tuning and various other parameters in this plugin. So keep that in mind. But the main thing that I use this plugin for is the formant shift. All right, so next on the list is Bad Tape by Denise Audio. And this is actually a company that reached out to me a while back and gave me this plugin to do a review. So I do have a review of this plugin on the channel, which you can check out if you're interested. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description and something will pop up on the screen now if you want to check that out. But this plugin has actually become probably my most used lo-fi plugin, even more so than RC20 and some of the other ones that I have. And there's a couple reasons why I like it so much. Number one is just how easy the interface is to use, and the saturation just sounds incredible in this plugin. It just adds a really nice sort of retro flavor that, in my opinion, other lo-fi plugins just don't quite do. Some other cool aspects of this plugin is this color knob, which acts, I guess, kind of like an EQ in a way, where you can bring this either up or down, and up kind of creates a brighter sound and down kind of creates a darker sound. And then the other thing I really like about this plugin is the way that the wow and the shake works. So the wow is that slower in and out of tune effect, and then the shake is kind of a faster effect. The harm also sounds really, really good. So the harm is kind of a bit crushing effect, but it's different than most other bit crushers, and I've been able to get some really unique sounding sounds out of it just with using this particular bit crusher that I haven't really been able to necessarily replicate with some other bit crushers. So just a really unique, cool plugin here. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what it sounds like on another Iota Mini. So here, I'll mute this. So just instantaneously, the second you put it on some sort of retro sounding synth, it just immediately creates some vibe that you just really don't get with some of these other lo-fi plugins. So again, Bad Tape, highly recommend it. This plugin is available on Plugin Boutique. Right now it's $40. So I'll be sure to leave an affiliate link in the description of this video. If you guys do decide you want this plugin and you use that link, then it'll help out the channel as well. And of course, this plugin is compatible with Mac and Windows. All right, so next on the list is RC20. This is another lo-fi plugin, and it's probably the most well-known and iconic lo-fi plugin. I think, again, most of you have probably heard of this plugin. I definitely recommend this plugin. It's really amazing. However, it is a little bit pricey. You can also get this plugin on Plugin Boutique for $100. It is available on Mac and Windows. Now, I was actually able to get this plugin on sale for, I think, around $50. I think it was half off. And that was around Christmas time, so it might be worth keeping an eye on this plugin if you want to try and get it on sale at some point. They may have like a Black Friday sale or a Christmas sale, something like that. Now, some of the strengths of this plugin is just the amount of flexibility that you have over the controls of what this plugin can do. So for example, within the noise module, we have the ability to change the tone of this. We can also change the duck, flux. So the flux creates sort of a randomized feature where, you know, it cuts in and out and does all sorts of stuff. You can change the routing, and we have tons and tons of different vinyl noises. And this goes for basically every module. You know, we have a ton more flexibility than pretty much any other lo-fi plugin in terms of what you can do to kind of create your own unique sound within this plugin, which is really, really cool. And that's, you know, one of the main reasons I wanted to get this plugin is for that flexibility. Also, every single one of these modules sounds pretty much amazing and potentially could be its own sort of standalone plugin. For example, the space module is essentially a reverb, and the reverb is fantastic. So again, if you want to get some retro vibes, RC20 is definitely another amazing plugin. I use this plugin in combination with Bad Tape a lot, and then also some other lo-fi plugins that I have as well. All right, so next up we have Valhalla Supermassive. This is another free plugin. It's compatible with Windows and Mac. Now this plugin is a little bit unique because it's a delay slash reverb plugin, kind of all built into one. And so if you were to go into some of these presets, you can see we have echoes, we have reverbs, and we have different sort of types of presets within here. So we have small, medium, large, massive, and here we can just pick a random preset. So I'll do like space verb and kind of take a listen to what it sounds like again on this Iota Mini preset. Anyway, you can go through some of the different presets here and experiment with it on your own. Because this is a free plugin, I don't want to spend too much time on it. But one of the things I really love about this plugin is the amount of flexibility in this plugin. You can just get so many different types of sounds out of it. So for example, we can go back to milliseconds, and we can basically, this is how we can kind of change it from a reverb to a delay. And then another thing that we have is we have all these different modes to choose from. So these are all going to change the sound and have different algorithms associated with them. So like I said, I mean, it's just so many different possibilities and different types of sounds that you can get out of this reverb/delay plugin. And one of the main things I love using this plugin for is for really ambient sounds, where I can just crank up the reverb and just create sort of these like really lush pad sounds. So this plugin is absolutely great for that type of stuff. But again, you can use it for pretty much anything. All right, so next on the list is M-Autopan. This is another one of those free plugins from the MeldaProduction's bundle that I was talking about earlier in the video. And the way this plugin works is it has an LFO, and the LFO is used as a panning tool. So it'll take your signal and it'll pan it left and right, and you can change the speed here and the depth and the pan law. And other than that, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like you can get complex with different wave shapes and stuff in here. So you can choose from different types of LFOs. But usually, for the most part, I'm basically just using the sine wave and then kind of messing with the rate and the pan and stuff like that. So let's take a listen again. So on this particular lead synth that I'm using, it sounds cool by itself, but where this plugin really shines is when you have a full mix and then you add this on some sort of lead or some sort of like maybe background textural thing, and it just can really create some space in your mix and add some more stereo depth that you wouldn't necessarily get otherwise. So I love this plugin. This is another plugin that I'll often stack along with the M-Autopitch and the various other plugins like the delay, reverb, all that stuff. Just another plugin that I can use to help spice up my mix by spreading it out a little bit. All right, so we're about to get into the stock FL Studio plugin portion of this video. However, there is one more plugin that I want to do sort of an honorable mention shout out. This is kind of like a bonus plugin because it's a plugin that I just actually recently got and I haven't used it a whole lot. I've used it in about two recent projects that I've been working on. It's another lo-fi plugin, and this plugin is absolutely amazing. So this plugin is called Cassette by Wavesfactory, and one of my new students actually told me about this plugin, but I am obsessed with this plugin. It's absolutely amazing. In some ways, I like this plugin even more than RC20 and Bad Tape. It's another one of those plugins where you just have a ton of control over the sound, and you can really get a lot of different great sounds out of it. So let's go ahead and take a listen here. Now for this particular sample that I'm using, which is actually just a piano part that I played, which I bounced down to audio and then resampled, but I am using Bad Tape on it in conjunction with Cassette. So here, let me actually just mute everything except for just the Cassette. So we do have 4 different tapes to choose from, and that's going to drastically change the sound. We also have a Pro preset, a Home preset, and a Micro preset. So this is drastically going to change the sound as well. Also, this input knob controls the compression amount and then ultimately introduces saturation and distortion the higher you go with this. So let's take a listen to that. There's so many cool features in this plugin. I don't necessarily want to go through all of them. I might have to do a separate tutorial just on this plugin in the future. But another one of my favorite features of this plugin is that you can go here and then you can change the random snap amount. And in conjunction with this, the artifacts knob, you can start getting that sort of wobbly tape sound, which in my opinion, a lot of other plugins don't do a very good job with, but this plugin does a great job with. So let's take a listen and see if we can get that sound. You can kind of hear that. I mean, this plugin just does an amazing job with that. This is another plugin you can get on Plugin Boutique. It is Windows and Mac compatible, so you should be able to use it with any DAW. And right now it is $59 on Plugin Boutique. I believe I got this one on sale for either 40 bucks or 50 bucks. So I definitely recommend getting Cassette. This is probably my new favorite lo-fi plugin. All right, so let's move on to the stock FL Studio plugins. The first plugin that I want to talk about is Distructor, and the main reason I use this plugin is for the filter section. It's just really convenient to have a built-in filter that looks like this. Very simple to use. You have a cutoff knob and you have a resonance knob, and then you have different types of filters which you can choose from. So for example, I usually use, like a low pass filter, and in this case, I used it in the intro of this track. So let's take a listen. And just so you know, Distructor is compatible with all versions of FL Studio from the Fruity Edition onward. All right, so next up is the Fruity Balance. This is not necessarily the most exciting plugin. It's basically just a gain plugin, but I use this plugin for sidechaining, and I've actually done videos on this in the past. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of this video if you guys want to check out my most recent video on how I use the Fruity Balance for sidechaining. But I also use this plugin just as a gain plugin on the master channel sometimes if I either need to turn things up or down for some reason. Usually I use it to turn things up because I mix so quietly, but this plugin is very, very useful for any sort of volume automation that you want to be doing in your tracks. And just as a quick example, I'll show you how I'm using it in this track. So I am using it for sidechaining in this case. And basically what it's doing is every time the kick hits, the 808 cuts out. So this is on the 808 right now. And let's go ahead and take a listen to what that sounds like. And once again, you can use this plugin with all versions of FL Studio from the Fruity Edition onward. All right, so next up is the Fruity Parametric EQ2. And I just use this plugin as my go-to parametric EQ just because it's native to FL Studio, so I know it's going to take up less CPU, and I've just gotten used to it. It's a great parametric EQ. I do use dynamic EQs a lot as well. There's a really good free dynamic EQ called TDR Nova, so be sure to check that one out if you don't already have a dynamic EQ. They can be really helpful for certain cases. However, in most cases, you're just going to be using a regular parametric EQ. There's not really much more to say about EQ. Hopefully all of you are familiar with that. If you're brand new to production and you're not really familiar with EQs yet, I did do a video on EQ a while back where I talked all about it. So I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of this video to that video, as well as something will pop up on the screen now. And once again, you can use this plugin with all versions of FL Studio from the Fruity Edition onward. All right, so next on the list is the Fruity Fast Distortion. I just really prefer this distortion plugin to all the other native FL Studio distortion plugins because it's so simple to use. It's just 4 knobs, and then you have kind of an A/B switch, which changes the tone of the distortion. But it's basically just a preamp, a threshold, and then you have your mix knob, and then you have your post gain knob. So very straightforward, simple to use. You can get some really great distortion sounds out of this plugin. And of course, there are tons of different things you can use distortion on: kicks, subs, But one thing that I really love to use distortion on is, again, going back to this vocal example. Anytime I have like an acapella or a chopped up vocal or something like that, and I'm trying to do some cool processing on it where I'm getting, unique sounds. Again, I'm using the M-Autopitch. We talked about that earlier. I'm using some EQ. And in this case, I'm also using the fruity fast distortion to kind of just generate some more harmonics, change up the sound, sort of give it more of an aggressive sound. So we can take a listen to this vocal. And in this particular example, the distortion that I'm using is actually extremely subtle. I don't think it's really adding a whole lot, but there are some cases where I use it and it just completely changes the sound, gives it a more aggressive feel, and in some cases actually makes it harder to understand the words, which can be a good thing for, if you're trying to create kind of like an instrument out of your vocal chop or whatever. So again, there are tons of uses for the fruity fast distortion. It's just kind of my go-to distortion when it comes to FL Studio. And just like all the other plugins, this plugin is available in all versions of FL Studio from the Fruity Edition onward. All right, so next up we have the Fruity Delay 3. I've talked about this already a couple times earlier in the tutorial, and I've also done a tutorial on this plugin fairly recently, so I'll be sure to leave a link in the description to that tutorial if you want to check it out, and also something will pop up on the screen now somewhere. But this is my go-to delay plugin. I absolutely love this plugin, and if you check out that other video, you'll understand why. Again, this plugin is available with all versions of FL Studio from the Fruity Edition onward. And finally, we have our last plugin of the video, which is Flex, another stock FL Studio plugin. This is ImageLine's newest synth that they've created for FL Studio, and it's actually a rompler. So I kind of compare this to Nexus or a plugin like that, where you can't really create your own sounds from scratch, but you do have a ton of different preset packs which you can download, a lot of which are free, some of which are paid, but you can buy them, download them, or download the free ones, and then you have access to all these different presets, which in a lot of cases is convenient over designing your own sounds from scratch, because if you're in the mood to just create music and you don't really want to spend the time to do sound design, a lot of times you can just grab a preset and then you can get to making music a lot quicker that way. Now, a couple things that I love about this plugin is that, one, we do have these macro controls. So depending on what preset you load up, you can change the timbre and the tone and various characteristics of that preset really easily with these macro controls. So this plugin makes it really easy to tweak the presets and the sounds and kind of come up with your own thing that way. And then the other good thing about this plugin is we do have a tag feature down here. So you can search for presets based on a specific type or a style, and that makes it a lot easier to find kind of what you're looking for if you have something in mind. Now, once again, this plugin is available with all versions of FL Studio from the Fruity Edition onward. And with all that being said, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Also hit the notification bell. You can also join my Discord server. I'll be sure to leave a link for that in the description of this video. And if you're brand new to music production or you're struggling with anything production related, I do offer one-on-one private lessons, which you can sign up for on my website. So I'll be sure to leave a link for that as well in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video.